What's going on, everyone? Sid Gordon here with Core Medical, the Core Medical Podcast. And today I have an amazing guest on that I know both our core patients, our veterans, our active duty service members, first responders are going to love to hear from. This gentleman has become a real close friend through Branch Warren. I got to spend some time in Vernon, Texas, hunting on his ranch that he has. The hospitality was amazing. We had things in common right off the bat. Like we both enjoy really good red meat and shooting firearms and running around the woods. My buddy Chase Stroud is here. He is a sponsored athlete from Kydex. Kydex, I believe, is the firearm company. He'll correct me on all this stuff as soon as he comes on. I had a rough morning, guys, today. But when I tell you that this guy is almost superhuman when it comes to long distance shooting, he's superhuman when it comes to long distance shooting. And we're going to have some pretty cool offers on the table for you guys actually have the ability to come and shoot with Chase. I have had the ability, Jason Frost has, and this guy is just another level. So Chase, man, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day today, coming on, and let's have a great chat.
Hey everybody, Chase Stroud here with Pumps Precision Rifle Training. Sidney, I really appreciate this opportunity to have me on. And, we've got to shoot, send a few rounds downrange together, man. Just wait. You aren't even within 10 yards of walking up to the rabbit hole, much less, looking down in it. And we're digging the bottom of the pit right now with the tip of the spear on what's possible.
Well, Jason had the opportunity to shoot more than anybody else with you.
Yeah.
And when we were flying back, I look over on him and he's on the computer and he's looking at how much money it costs to like get into the sport. And he's like, fuck that, I'm sticking with my bow for another couple of years. I'll just come out here and use Chase's stuff.
Yeah, I always joke around and tell people, yeah, I'm a firearms instructor, but I'm really just a drug dealer, because the first time I have you ring steel at distance, you might as well have just mainlined heroin. I mean, it is seriously one of the most addictive things that I've ever, like, to the day, like it consumed my life. I mean, I literally had a paradigm shift in my life, and this is all I do now. Like literally all I do. I eat, sleep, and breathe long range and extreme long range shooting.
So
yeah, Jason, yeah, he got lucky, paired up with me and getting to, he was shooting my 300 Norma at I think it was like 1143 yards if I'm recalling.
And prior to that, Jason's never shot a gun over 80. So I mean that's the reality. He's a brand new hunter, and really loves it. Anyone that's passionate about hunting, if they're coachable, I'll take them. And it's a great thing to help someone through the woods and help someone learn how to get around a firearm or a bow or a handgun.
That's
but
right.
Chase, talk to me about how you ended up here. Give us a background. I know you have a really interesting dynamic of a family. You're very Branch Warren speaks the world of you, and if Branch ain't the easiest guy to get signed off on from. So talk to me a little bit about Branch and talk to me a little bit about your background and how you got into shooting, because there's a lot we can talk about today. And I just like everyone to understand kind of the background and the human that's on the other side of the mic with me.
Sure, absolutely. So I grew up in Weatherford, Texas, west of Fort Worth. Very, very blessed in my upbringing. My dad had me hunting from the time I killed my first deer when I was 5, and old single shot 22 Hornet, man. And I actually killed 3 deer right in a row when I was 5 years old, opening weekend of deer season. And I was hooked on the spot. I was already shooting our 22s and our BB guns before then. When I was like 4 and 5 years old, I would literally sit out in our driveway with my Red Ryder, and I was already Kentucky holding, shooting as far as you could see the BB fly out there. And that's another thing is, everyone jokes about me and my brother and my sister. Our genetics are, pretty decent, and me and my brother both have better than 2010 vision, and that really is what really started me, is my ability to watch BBs fly through the air and shooting grasshoppers in our driveway growing up. And it turned out like every time I'd get a new gun, Like, let's just go see how far we can shoot it. And we had a 500-yard range right off of our porch at my house growing up. And I mean, I could just walk right out there and blast away all I wanted to. And, so I was very lucky in that sense. And it always carried over. It always had my curiosity. And then when I would say, I think it was like 10 or 11, I had a free range 180 plus inch whitetail, smooth 10 point, and he was like 400 yards away. And I just did not know what to do. And I had plenty of gun to do it. I was shooting a 240 Weatherby, very flat, shooting 6 millimeter, and I just didn't know what to do at that point. And that was the paradigm shift in my life right there, where it was time to learn how to shoot long range. And I started doing research. Um, at middle school, and I'm sure if I looked that stuff up today, I'm sure the Department of Homeland Security would have been called on me. But I was looking up how to shoot long range and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff at middle school. The teachers were cool with it. They knew who I was. But
Yeah.
I essentially taught myself the math on how to do that. And back in the day, that was when we did data books, because there were no ballistic solvers until the Sierra.
Or these watches that we wear on our wrists.
Oh, dude! I was literally about to like.
I even got the right band now, Chase. All right, I got the right band going.
What's up?
Okay.
So we went from like just writing down all of our data to now we've got Kestrel 5700Xs. We've got Garmin Tactics 7s. Like, these things have ballistic solving engines in them, and not just like they're okay. On this watch, we had first round perfect elevation at 4.06 miles, 7,151 yards a couple of years ago. We didn't even have to move the scope one click on elevation. We just kept shooting and bracketing wind on a 22-second time of flight shot. And I'm telling you, like, these things are scary accurate if you know how to use them correctly. And that's everything. Is just like a TI-83, what we grew up in back in the day, in middle school, high school. Great calculator, but if you put the incorrect information in, you get the wrong answer. It's no different than these firing solution, watches that, or the Kestrels. If you don't put in the correct information, you get your firing solution. How much elevation do I dial on, and how much windage do I hold? That's pretty much your answer. And so we're solving for X, and X is intercepting the target at that distance in this wind condition, and trying to put the bullet on steel or put it into flesh.
Yep.
So I never got to Branch. Let me get to Branch. This is a funny story, because we were just talking about our Dall sheep hunt just a second ago.
Yeah.
I had just come back from Alaska on this Dall sheep hunt in 2007, and I was already going to Metro Flex up in Arlington, and I was into powerlifting back then. I was about 300 pounds, and I was pulling a lot of weight on deadlift, benching over 500. And my back was still recovering from where I broke it, my L4, L5, just a few years before that. But I didn't squat, but I was just benching and deadlifting, and just got done just massacred in the gym by Brian Dobson, the owner. And he wanted to go out and look at my Dall sheep. And we're out in the parking lot of Metroflex. And then I hear this gravelly voice who's like, "Oh my God, dude, I want to kill one of those so bad." And I turned around and it was Branch. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Branch Warren." Like, man, I idolized, dude. I was like, I totally fanboyed out just like an idiot.
Yeah.
And Branch was like, "What'd you shoot him with?" And I happened to have a custom built rifle, and I pulled it out, and he was like, "I want one of those." And I was like,
Branch and I have something in common.
yeah. That was like my end with him right there. I didn't realize how much of a hunter he was.
Big time, dude. He's fucking no joke.
Like way more than you would expect. And so he ends up sending me, like, we met that day. He sends me home with a blank check to build him a 338 Lapua custom built.
Yeah,
and I was trying to convince him out of it. I was like, "Man, you just met me.
Why don't you shoot me first?" Yeah.
Yeah, let's just maybe hang out a time or two before you just hand me a blank check like that." And he's like, he looked over at Brian. He goes, "Brian, you trust him?" Brian's like, "Oh yeah." And he's like, "You're good." I was in. Because it was good with Dobson, it was good with Branch.
Yeah.
And that's honestly, like, that's the level of my circle now too, in life, is like, I don't, if someone in my personal circle trusts you, I just trust you. That's just the way I work.
That's
So
right.
that was like Branch with you, Sidney. He's
Yep.
like, Branch like, this is a good dude. That's pretty much all he said, and he left it wide open.
Yeah.
And man, he undersold you about as bad as anyone ever has.
I
So,
appreciate that.
like, I
Yeah.
recognize you as family like instantly, man. So this was such a great deal coming together.
I agree completely. I mean, you have I mean, the hospitality there was awesome. We had a freaking blast together. I mean, everyone, Cody had such a good time. And, Cody was in the stand. Go figure, Cody, probably would have been fine with a rifle shooting a deer out to about, 1,000, 1,500 yards just from his past experiences in life, especially with you beside him. But Cody's really gotten to the bow thing, and he sits in the stand with you, and the first day kills a real nice buck, and that was just awesome for him. And I was
Yeah.
happy because the archery with my veterans, I work very close with a lot of the military guys, and I try to get as many guys that saw quite a bit overseas into archery because it's really hard to get them hooked on rifle hunting. It's a lot easier with archery because it's so much more difficult. It's up close and personal, and it's there's just a different feeling involved for those guys, and that's kind of Cody's situation. Don't get me wrong, Cody will take a rifle and go slide in the woods, but the archery really keeps him engaged, and especially the opportunity to get him on a really nice deer the first day was awesome to keep him super engaged. So I was super grateful for that, and we just all had such a great time out there. But I want to get back and discuss your training platform. There's a lot of listeners that don't understand really what goes into long range shooting, or even shooting 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards with a rifle, what the difference is between 300 yards and 600 yards. And where like the real technical side of things come into play. So can you give us a background on your training technique, exactly what you do? If I came to you, my shooting level of, 200, 300, 400 yards. I know my rifle well enough out to about 400 yards, and kind of go from there.
Yeah. So, pretty much depending on everybody's level of experience, most people actually start over from square one with fundamentals. Um, I'm a victim of this too. My dad only knew what he knew, and he told me what he knew, and it turns out it was all garbage. Um, I essentially will start over and teach people how to correctly position themselves behind a rifle, how to correctly put their hand on the rifle, how to get consistent pressure, how to teach them how to correctly breathe, and how to shoulder the weapon every time. So if our body is the same and repeatable every time, our rifle can behave the same way every time. Because you'd be surprised. Like, and again, I was running some numbers for a client. I was doing load development on their custom rifle. People send their rifles to me, and I tune the ammunition to the barrel of their rifle, so their guns can have every possibility and have very low extreme spreads on velocity because of my excruciatingly detailed reloading process. But I was trying to ask my client, do you shoulder your rifle heavy or do you free recoil? He goes, what does that matter? And I was like, about 45 feet per second. And he was like, huh? I said, yeah. So if I free recoil the gun, barely put it against my shoulder, and when I shoot, it shoots 45 feet a second slower versus if I give it more shoulder and resistance, and I'm not giving as much, you've created a different way of applying pressure to the weapon system, and it changes your muzzle velocity.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it causes a point of impact shift on paper at 100. So if you're already shifting on paper at 100, amplify that the further you shoot, and you get more separation. So having a foundation of perfect fundamentals is everything. And the reason that really shines true, like my wife, Lauren over here, she's the first and only female to hit 3 miles with her rifle, 5,288 yards. So 8 yards past 3 miles.
Okay,
Well,
so just so everyone
and she,
understands the caliber of this gentleman we're speaking to, what is your furthest connection shot on record?
on an animal or on steel?
Steel.
Steel, 3.5 miles.
Okay. And what's your
6160 on steel and just over 3,000 yards on for hunting.
Okay, so you've killed an animal over 3,000 yards.
I killed 3 deer just over 3,000 yards. Yeah.
Okay, and that's
Quite a few hogs over a mile. This year, we're actually going to try to get a 2 mile kill on a pig on video, which is hard because they don't sit still.
no, you just got to put a lot of bait down.
Yeah, really. So really, the key is you dig a hole in the ground with say like a postal digger. You bury your corn, put some pancake syrup in there, and you cover the hole back up. And they'll get down on their front knees, and they have to like really, work it out of the ground. That's the best way I've found to keep them still.
So going back to what you're saying, I just wanted people to understand that these things are possible. I mean, there's a lot that comes into play. I personally am going to spend some time this year trying to dial my game up with Chase, and we're going to play a couple videos during this. You can he's going to talk us through the videos in a few minutes, but I want him to finish up here quickly explaining where he was going. His wife, shooting over 3 miles. So take it from there, brother.
Yeah. So essentially, she'd killed a deer, never had shot a precision rifle ever until she met me. And we were doing a 2 mile entertainment package one time with a gentleman that him and his partners had won the Kentucky Derby. So they came in to shoot 1.5, and 2 miles with me. And then we serve them Wagyu at the end of the day. Well, literally every single guy, they hit a mile on the first shot. They all hit 1.5 miles on the first shot, and everybody hit within 5 shots at 2 miles. And that does not happen very often, that everyone shoots that efficiently. Well, we had quite a bit of ammo left over, and I told Lauren to jump down on my rifle. And we were, 3,520 yards is 2 miles. So we were actually shooting at 3,655 yards this particular instance. And she hit on her 5th shot. And, all we had ever done is shoot fundamentals with a 22 before that. But she applied those fundamentals to a large precision rifle. We weaponized the math essentially on bullet flight. And, that got her addicted, and we ended up building her a rifle. But, without correct fundamentals, you just can't shoot that far. I don't care. Like, I can do all the math, all the wind calls, everything for you. And if you're a little bit different on the gun each time, you get a different result down range each time. So that's what we start people over from a clean slate. This is how we're going to shoot from now on. It allows you to watch your own projectile hit the target, because most people get on the rifle incorrectly. So when they shoot,
can't see.
Their gun jumps and they can't even see what's going on downrange. So we start from there.
So I know the answer to this question, but so can you just pick up any weapon? So here's a great example. I purchased a Christensen Arms 300 PRC. I guess I got lucky with the one that I purchased because you said it shot pretty true compared to the other ones that you have shot in the past.
Correct. Yes.
Talk to me about the weapons you shoot versus the Christensen that I shoot. And
So Sidney, you've got that Christensen 300 PRC, like you said.
Yep.
I don't ever bash companies like publicly and openly, but it's a known fact that a lot of Christensen carbon fiber barrels, they walk after they heat cycle, and you have a genuinely good shooting rifle straight from the factory. That doesn't happen more often than not. They don't shoot that great. Not to what I would expect. I'll just say that I have a completely different standard for precision. And let's talk about. A lot of people say, "Oh, is that an accurate rifle?" Like, if you know your terminology, that's a very odd question. So accuracy is putting your bullet where you want it to go, like at long distance. If I'm shooting at 1,000 yards in a crosswind, I'm accurate if I hit the center of the target, because that's where I want. Precision is being able to repeat and shoot groups. So your rifle holds its precision much better than the standard Christensen Arms. Now, me, for example, this is one of my rifles. This is a Cadex Defense CDX 40 Shadow.
Oh, I thought you were gifting that to me after the podcast.
Of course I am.
You can use it, but you're going to give it right back.
There you go. So this is a switch-barreled rifle. It's chambered in 338 enabler, and I can switch and put on a 375 enabler barrel, depending on what I'm doing.
Who makes that gun?
Cadex Defense.
Why you could be with any company and get any firearm from any precision rifle probably in the world. Why Cadex?
I can go straight to 2 miles right out of the box. And I actually just did that recently on a video for Burger. I don't know, Burger bullets are one of the best, if in my opinion, the best brand of bullet on the market. And we just did a little thing together for SHOT Show, and I put my factory 375 barrel straight. This is literally off the assembly line from Cadex as it sits, and we were shooting the new Burger 410 grain hybrid that they just released at SHOT Show, and I hit 3 shots in a row on video at 2 miles. And there might be one other brand of rifle that's capable of doing that, but they won't do it. Like, I can take any Cadex rifle, literally any one of them, and I'm confident to go to shoot King of 2 Mile with it. That's the biggest ELR match in the world too. They all hold the same precision. I can swap barrels on action to action. They headspace, like everything is like perfect from them. It's basically a custom rifle from the factory. And they're expensive, but by the time you end up building a custom rifle anyways,
Yep.
you're not getting better parts than what's already on. They come with Bartline barrels, which in my opinion are one of the best in the world. Um, they have a phenomenal chassis. It's extremely comfortable. I can lay behind it for a long time. It is infinitely modular, and the actions are very strong and robust. And the rifles, I've yet to see one that didn't perform better than half minute of angle, even with factory ammunition that's not tuned. Now, when you tune the ammo, they get them to shoot through the exact same hole. Like my 338 enabler barrel for this thing, I shot 5 groups at 1,000 yards in a row that were under 3 inches.
That's unheard of.
It's not normal.
No, no,
I'll just
no.
say
I mean,
that.
if I even hit the steel at 1,000 yards, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and when you come shoot with me, I'm going to change your standard of expectation. Like it, it just like I changed your expectation with what meat should be. I do
Yeah,
the
that's
same
true.
thing with
We're gonna get into
rifles.
that too.
I know,
So,
I know.
whenever I talk about this on the podcast a lot, and I've had a lot of people on. So I've done quite a few different. I've had quite a few different hobbies, and whenever I get in a new hobby, I try to find the most knowledgeable person in my immediate circle that will take me under their wing. For instance, I crit raced, and I had a pro crit racer train me, and then I started winning crit races. And then jiu-jitsu, I had one of the best coaches in the country. Got really good with jiu-jitsu and Dutch kickboxing and shooting. And then with archery, found a guy down here in Florida that really, I've been shooting archery since I was very young, but, hunting with a bow is a lot different than shooting a target with a bow. As I'm sure you would compare the same to hunting with a rifle, shooting steel is probably quite a little bit different as well. And, Chase is definitely the guy I'm latching on to now for my new hobby in 2024. He's going to be building me probably a couple of guns this year. But what I did want to kind of bring up is my hunt there was interesting. I had a miss on a giant, and that was
Understatement. That was a big deal.
it was a giant. And, I know right away, I knew, I was very excited, and I could have slowed down in that situation. Now looking back on it, I kind of know what I did wrong because I did it right at a much further distance on the deer that I ended up killing. For instance, I used the rest on the side of the stand rather than lying down in the stand and shooting, from prone. And, windage up in Texas was crazy.
It was super windy that day, like
Super
abnormally windy.
Yeah. So I'm going to let Chase give you the breakdown of my final kill because we didn't know where the bullet went. And he ended up actually, skinning the animal for me because I had to catch a flight. But I'll let him tell my story here.
Yeah, so like Sidney was saying, unless you're so that's another reason, like, I actually encourage people to go and shoot long range competitions because it forces you to become a problem solver on the fly. And that's why I got into it originally. I shot the very first PRS match ever. And essentially, Precision Rifle Series is what the PRS stands for. It's a match where we shoot around 200 rounds over 2 days. And I would say about back in the day, it was about 30 to 40% prone and, 60, 70% off of what we call barricades. So just different objects that you have to shoot off of, very unstable. And, we're kind of shooting between 300 and 800 yards on barricades. And maybe some of the prone stages, they're, 700 to 1200 yards.
Mm-hmm.
In its simplest form, that's what we're doing. And I got into all that just because I knew it was going to make me a better hunter. I was a hunter first and foremost, always will be. And that really made me so much more confident than I ever thought I could be. I just never stopped and never let off the gas. Like, hey, let's keep seeing how far we can keep pushing this, how far, how small of a target off of a wobbly barricade can we get good at, and then you get to where you can almost shoot 50% at 1,000 yards off of barricades. So when you go to shoot prone, you're just that much more stable. Well, the way that deer stand was set up for Sidney, he didn't have the bag that he should have had to put on the rail that would have allowed him for a more comfortable shot. So he has to bail off, kind of like stand on the staircase, and then you were leaning back, and then he has a lightweight, heavy recoiling rifle on top of that. So if he doesn't hit the animal, there's going to be a problem because you don't see where the bullet hits in your reticle. Well, Sidney learned a hard lesson on rangefinders that day. He didn't understand about beam divergence and where the laser goes in comparison to the reticle. And 95%.
The first deer, it was only like 200 yards. The first one was just a clean miss on the rest, just stupid. But talking about the one I ended up shooting is where he's going with it now. So go on.
So he goes to range, his deer out there, and he thinks it's like 730 yards. And I'm sitting there, because after I heard you shoot, because Jason and I were 2 miles away from you, we heard the boom, whop, and I was like, oh man, he got one. That was at distance too. You heard that bullet smack, and you texted it. And he was like 730 yards. I'm just sitting there thinking, I was like, man, I don't think that field is quite that big. And I'm sitting there like instantly, and because I'm such a math nerd, like I'm instantly trying to like it just instantly sits with me like, I don't know, and I'm pulling it up. I don't know where the deer is in the field, but I'm trying to drop pins on GPS immediately to figure out. I was like, where did he shoot that deer at? And well, anyway, we get out there.
The only shot that was 730 yards would have been back in the wood line directly to my like 10 o'clock, or way down in the far corner of the property, which went up to 1,000 yards,
right.
which was exactly.
And then I asked you, I said, well, how much elevation did you put on your gun?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I held over. And I'm just like,
yeah, about a foot and a half over.
A foot and a half. I was like, that maps out for about 400 yards.
Yeah.
Because I had chronographed your gun earlier. I already made sure I knew where your zero was, your BC, your muzzle velocity. So I pull up the drop on my, on my Kestrel here. And I was just like, that math doesn't work. That's about a 400-yard shot. And you're like, no, he was 730. I got on the rangefinder. Well, we get to where the deer is, like one of the few deer that just kept getting bigger. Like as we walked up to it, like his body, holy crap.
Yeah, it was a stud.
Big. And
I think we got a picture of him coming up.
Yeah. And I sure enough, I drop a pin on the, and that picture does not do justice to that deer's body.
No.
Not even close. Because remember, Cody's deer was bigger than his body, and your deer was way bigger than Cody's deer.
Yeah.
So, I drop a pin where the deer's dead, like literally where you're sitting in the field there, and back on this deer stand, it's 401 yards.
Yeah, it was like, exactly right.
I knew it. I was like, I knew we were right around 400 yards. And
mind you, he wasn't even in the stand with me. He was 2 miles away. This is just from hearing the shot go. So
correct. And but anyway, this is again one of the things we teach in the courses is how to quadrate your rangefinder. But the fact that Sidney was able to
get lucky.
Well, call it what you want. I'd rather be lucky than good. You know how many times I've been really good and a deer didn't even come out?
Yeah,
being good.
Exactly.
Doesn't do you
That's
a whole
true.
lot of good. It allows you to extend your normal, like, so anywhere I go now, I have, depending on what rifle I take, bare minimum, I have a 2,000 yard radius I can hunt from wherever I'm sitting. Bare minimum, and that's 223. We shoot our 223s way further than what people would think. We shoot our 22 long rifles up to 1,400 yards, and that is not an exaggeration.
Yeah, we have a
So,
video of that too. We're going to chat about. But so my first shot was a miss. I missed the first shot, and I was resting on the rail, and then I took my shirt off, threw it over the grate of the stand I was sitting on, and went down into a prone position.
yeah,
And then he'll finish the story here because it was a
yeah,
pretty interesting.
yeah. So Sidney, we hear the shot go off, and of course, like every hunt, Sidney, it always happens literally the last 5 minutes, the last 5 days, or the last day, and he's in a hurry. He's got to get to the airport and catch a flight, and so he leaves the deer with me, and
We can't find a bullet hole.
we cannot find a bullet hole on this deer to save our lives. And as I'm gutting him, like his internals are destroyed, but there's no entrance or exit wound anywhere. And by the time I get up and get up running the knife up, like he had shot that thing down the mouth, and it went straight down his throat and grenaded into his chest. Like it's like literally you couldn't have put that thing more perfectly
Well, the wind
straight down
the wind put
between
it there.
well, the wind put it there, but like you shot him like right down the mouth, right down the throat, and just grenaded his heart and his lungs, man. So like dropped deader than a sack of crap right there on the spot. Couldn't have asked for a better shot in a highly demanding situation.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
my hat's off to you,
Thanks, buddy. I
sir, for
appreciate
that.
that.
Making it matter when it mattered.
Yeah, it was awesome because I saw that deer earlier. I went this property out there is it's unbelievable. I saw probably four shooters. I passed on probably two deer that were bigger, but this deer was I would call him a cull buck most likely, even though
Yeah,
he'd be
I would agree.
he'd be
He was old enough. I think he was a 5 year old deer. I think he is five, based off of his teeth and his body size and his he was getting that Roman nose.
yep.
The mature deer start to round off that forehead, and he had that. And I would agree. I would say he was the year before. I would have let him walk, but you made a good kill on a good animal.
And so the takeaway there is that um, hunting in Texas and hunting, Texas is a state that if you are a good long range shooter, the opportunity increases by about 100% because you're
Yeah,
shooting on these huge plains and these huge wheat fields. If you're used to shooting 100, 200 yards and you're going to go out and hunt with someone like Chase, come out a day or two early and definitely take advantage of being able to reach out to 5, 6, 7, 800 yards in the right positioning. Because if I had his training prior, the day before, I would have left very, very successful. I was in the stand with my buddy Garrett, who is one of the top guides in the country. And I've never seen the look of disgust and disappointment in someone's eyes after missing this monster the prior day. I got to redeem myself, and someone will kill that deer next year. He's still alive. Hopefully, it's me. But just an amazing hunt. So let's get back to small caliber shooting. There's a video that you sent of a 22. Christian, did you get that video? Can you scroll like about halfway through that video and Chase? I know when normal people watch this video, they're like, it was, I think it was like maybe 12 rounds or so until you hit that steel.
it was 16. So I'm actually shooting a spray paint can at 736 yards with my 22.
Uh huh.
And I'm shooting subsonic ammo, the new Lapua Super Long Range, and the wind was blowing quite a bit. In fact, um, my Kestrel powered off here. I've got the data for the shot. Yeah, that's it right there. So
Explain to us about the contraption there on the front, and how much are they?
so that's this device right here. In fact, this right here is called a TACOM HQ Mark 8 Charlie Tarak. And what this thing does is it's a periscope in its simplest form. Is your scope looks in to the back of it right here, and you got two mirrors, which you can kind of see those mirrors
Yep.
through there. And as I click this dial on the side, that one click will grossly give me the same amount of elevation that's in my entire scope. So essentially, I can only dial up, 30 mils worth of elevation.
Uh
And I
huh.
shoot for the Leopold Extreme Long Range Shooting Team. I have 30 mils of elevation in the Mark V. All right. So if I want to shoot further than 30 mils, now I can zoom out and hold over in that first focal plane reticle, but I lose magnification. And that's where this device comes in. Is I have 7 preset settings, and each time I move it, that's 30 mils of elevation.
So the entire sight picture now can be times 7. Is that accurate?
No, 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 no. That's
Okay.
not how that works.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with your zoom. All right. So essentially, as
No, I'm
I'm
talking the elevation can go up almost 7.
no, no, no.
Okay.
It's 30 mils at a time.
Oh god. Oh shit.
So
Okay.
I can
Got it.
dial my scope 30 mils, one tenth of a mil at a time, and it's graduation, right?
Okay.
So when I run out at 30 mils and I need to shoot further than that, I return the scope to 0. I throw on one click, and that will allow me to then dial up the difference to 60 mils on my
Wow.
scope.
Wow.
If I need to go further, return that to 0. Click, there's 60, dial up to 90, return to 0. 120, 150, 180, 210 plus the 30 on the top. I can go to 240 mils worth of elevation. So what that means is at sea level with this rifle behind me, with a true 100-yard zero, I can go straight to 7,000 yards
Phew.
without having to hold over in the reticle. Because
Wow.
every time I throw a click on the side of that Charlie Tarak, my image drops 30 mils. So when I re-aim my barrel, I've got 30 mils worth of elevation of launch angle built into my barrel.
Now, is there a
That's all.
magnifier inside of that as well?
Nope. All it is it's two extremely pristine, highly, highly, highly polished mirrors that are set in graduations of arc seconds. I can't even begin to tell you how precise that is. Like that's you almost need to be kind of an engineer to appreciate how accurately that device returns. And they're experimenting with different materials on the gear system so you never lose tolerance.
Okay. So, talk us through this shot here. Why don't you scroll about? I think the video is about 5 minutes long. Why don't you scroll to like the last 2 minutes of the video? You can tell us what you were doing prior to that, real quick. The wind, I think, was what was it, like 13 miles an hour?
It was 13 miles an hour coming in from 8:30. It was switching directions and velocity. It was kind of going from like 10 to about 14. And
So
and I'm
he's hitting steel on almost every single shot.
correct. So just go ahead and hit pause on the video so I can let people appreciate this a little bit.
What-
Um, so yeah, go ahead and pause down on the bottom, rewind it just a touch. All right, there. So you can see the can standing up. All right, here's a Bang Energy spray paint can's about the same size. It's just maybe almost twice this tall.
Okay.
All right. So if you really need to be a math nerd, which closetly I am, to really start to break down what these shots take. Okay, so it's easier to do on my phone than it is on my Kestrel, so I can actually turn the phone around and show people the math on this. If you start looking at how wide your target is on windage, you can
Okay.
really start to appreciate what these shots take. So 736
So what he means by
yards.
that is how far he needs to aim in one direction to hit that can based on the
Correct.
windage.
Yeah.
So
So
if the target's here and the wind's blowing this way, the can's really over here, correct?
well, no. So if I was to aim directly at the target, obviously the wind will push my bullet off path
Yep.
immediately.
Got
The
it.
moment it exits the barrel, there's a lot of violent atmospheric stuff that happens to the projectile.
Especially
So
at 22.
um, it's amplified with a 22 because I am shooting subsonic ammo, and
Okay.
it has a horrible ballistic coefficient. All right. And a ballistic coefficient is a numerical value assigned to the shape of a bullet, essentially. In its simplest form, is the more aerodynamic your projectile is, the higher your ballistic coefficient is. Your bullet will retain its velocity and energy better downrange. It will decrease your time of flight, excuse me, and then it will veer less in the wind.
Got it.
So we like to shoot very high ballistic coefficient bullets. Well, a 22 has about as low as a BC ballistic coefficient as you can get. And it's like throwing a parachute out. Like the moment that thing hits the atmosphere, its rate of deceleration is very rapid deceleration. So that's one of those deals that if you train with a 22 at 200 yards, it has the same amount of drop and the same amount of wind drift as shooting like a 6.5 PRC does at 1,000. So about a 7 mil drop at 200 yards and about 2 mils worth of wind drift.
Got it.
So very, very smart to save money if you want to cross train and you just scale your target size at 200 yards and 300 yards with a 22. That's like shooting at 1,000.
So you'd be using a smaller target with a 22 at 200 yards versus a larger target with a 6.5 PRC, which is one of my favorite rounds. At what'd you say, 400 yards?
Just 200 yards is the equivalent of shooting 1,000 yards with a
1,000 yards. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great.
So that's how you can go in with these ballistic solvers and figure all this stuff out. And essentially, like, a 1 minute of angle target at 1,000 yards is 10.47 inches, because 1 minute of angle is 1.047 inches at 100. Multiply that out, and that translates to 10.47. Okay. Well, the shooter's minute of angle, or inches per 100 yards, basically a minute of angle at 1,000 is 10 inches, and it's quick math. All right. So if I'm shooting at a 1 MOA target, which is the same as a 0.3 mil wide target,
got it.
I just need to make sure that my target is 0.3 mils or 1 MOA. So 1 minute of angle at 200 yards is roughly a 2-inch plate.
Got
if
it.
I can stay on a 2-inch plate at 200 yards with a 22, man, you're doing really good on your wind calling. And I mean really good, because at 50 yards where we zero our 22s, a 1 mile per hour wind will move us 1 bullet width left or right. And then you have
1 bullet width.
Yeah.
So on a per mile. So if it's a 10-mile-an-hour wind, we're talking
going to move you over
4 or 5 inches.
like an inch and a half in a 10 mile an hour. That's why a lot of people get in trouble. So we do have, if you give me like 2 seconds, I got my 22 against the wall right over there. I'll go grab it.
Grab it, please.
So people can appreciate what we're dealing with here.
This is not a normal 22.
It is to me.
Yeah.
So this is my 22, the one that's in that video that we were just watching. All right. And yes, it costs just as much as a regular custom built rifle, because this is a custom built 22. It's got a Voodoo left-handed action on it. It's got an MPA chassis, Leopold Mark V. I've got a Krieger barrel on that thing. And like I said, we've taken that 22 up to 1,400 yards. And that's with subsonic ammunition. So I'm 1,130 feet a second at the muzzle. And anyway, like, let's get back. I know I get sidetracked real easy. I'm passionate about things, and
no, this is great information. I feel like you're going to be getting a lot of DMs after this podcast.
Yeah, hopefully so. So I'm trying to remember all the data endpoints on the weather. I might be off on my pressure, on my raw station pressure and temps, but it'll.
So what factors come into play? Give us I think it was 4 or 5 factors that come into play, correct?
There's more than 4 or 5.
Okay.
In its simplest form, yeah. So write down the list here. So you have to know your ballistic code. So let's talk about deterministic variables and non-deterministic variables. We have to know all the deterministic variables first. All right. We have to know our twist rate on our barrel, our scope height above our bore line, because that will tell the ballistic solver, hey, I'm, on this one, I'm 3.25 inches from the firing pin to the center of my windage knob.
Got it.
All right. On my 22, I'm only like 2.64. All right.
Got it.
So that will actually change your click value depending on how high your scope is above or below your bore line. So the people that say you need to get your scope buried against your barrel, no, you do not. Like, that's first of all uncomfortable. I like my scope setting higher so my head's in a more neutral position and I'm not like forcing an awkward, my eyes get off. And then if I don't have a bubble level, am I really canting my gun, or am I straight? Am I plumb to gravity or not? There's a lot of things that go into this. But so we need to know our twist rate, our scope height. We need to know our muzzle velocity, very important, our ballistic coefficient of our projectile, because those two things right there will determine as much as anything how much your bullet will drop at distance, and then how much will wind deflect it. All
Got
right.
it.
And then you've got to worry about your raw station pressure, your temperature, your humidity. You have to worry depending on how
There
far your
goes
shot
way more than
is.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you've got to worry about your Coriolis effect. All right. So where are you latitudinally above the equator for the rotation of the Earth? It's a time of flight function. It's no different than throwing a pass to a wide receiver. All right. You're in motion, the Earth's in motion, the bullet's in motion. Where those things are going to converge at. All right. We have to predict where they're going to be. So that's why we need to know what our latitude is, and then the azimuth, what cardinal direction are we facing? Because that will, if we're shooting due east, that's the flattest our bullets will ever shoot. If we shoot west, we need more elevation. All right. We're on a semi-spheroid planet here. The Earth's rotating. If I'm shooting to the east, the Earth's rotating down and away from me. And if I'm shooting far enough, my target will actually drop out of the way of where my bullet's predictive path was. So, but if I know my latitude and my azimuth, I let the ballistic solver calculate the elevation for that. And on my highest performing rifle that I have, my 338 enabler, if I'm shooting 2,000 yards to the east, it is a full half mil flatter than if I turn around and shoot due west. And I've got the property to do that here in Texas. We've tested that. If you shoot and hit 2,000 yards facing to the east and you go to shoot 2,000 yards facing due west, you will shoot over the top of your target. Or I'm sorry, you're going to shoot underneath your target every single time.
With the same calculations, unless you change that calculation.
Correct.
Got it.
So, and then we've got our humidity. Humidity is not as big of a deal as you would think. Now, would you think that you need more or less elevation with more humidity?
Less.
Well, already. So, so yeah, there's more oxygen saturation in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Less resistance. All right.
Got it.
So the higher the humidity, the less resistant the air is.
I'm happy you didn't ask me to explain my answer.
Yeah. I'm not going to be that math teacher.
Okay, good. Can you please explain your answer, sir?
Go on. But anyway, low humidity, air is more dense, and the bullet will drop faster. Well, it doesn't drop faster. It loses velocity at a greater decay rate. All right.
Got it.
Then we've got our wind direction and wind speed, which those will, believe it or not, factor into your vertical quite a bit on aerodynamic jump. And that is a phenomena of what happens to projectiles in flight. Wind from the left, you need more elevation. Wind from the right, you need less elevation. Simplest form. All right. Further out you shoot, the more that gets magnified, really gets magnified on 22s. So, we're sitting there calculating all of this stuff. And then to really go down the rabbit hole, I have a separate profile on my Kestrel and on my Garmin watch here. So when we're shooting these 22s, when I put this device on in front of the scope, my scope height on my 22 goes from 2.64 inches to over 5 inches now, because right here, this hole, this is the absolute center pivot point for the mirror.
Got it.
That your last image is seen through, and it is higher. Therefore, my click values change. All right. They're worth more elevation per click the higher your scope set. So we've shot enough to know that, like, when we would just put this device on in front of our scope, our algorithm stopped lining up. It would only converge at one distance, and then it would be, low up front and then high beyond a certain distance. And it was because we weren't changing our scope height. And then we started putting secondary, all the same information in the Kestrel. The only difference is now our scope height's different, and then our algorithm
Got it.
meshes all the way out as far as we want to shoot. I'm talking like first round elevation at 1,200 yards with a 22. That's how amazing these things are now.
So going back to that video, what exactly were you doing with when you'd have I don't really want to call it a miss,
They
because
were misses,
yeah,
and
they're misses for what
again,
you were aiming at. But when you weren't on target, what exactly were you doing in that video? Like,
right.
can you
So,
talk us through that while he plays it?
yep, yep. Take it back to where we're on about our 9th or 10th shot.
Probably about right
Yeah,
there.
right there. That's fine. I think yeah, I'm about to reload on here, which is fine because that's going to give me time. So go ahead and hit pause. I'll kind of walk through the scope shot. So as you see on the Charlie Terra there, I have one click dialed in on it, just like that. So that's got 30 mils on the Charlie Terrac, and I believe I had dialed up it was like 22 mils of differential elevation, and I dialed that up on my scope right where we needed it, and then I had dialed 5 mils worth of windage on the side of my scope, which that's all those have are 5 mils, and then I'm holding the remainder in the reticle because if I didn't preload those 5 mils of windage at 736 yards and a 13-mile-an-hour full value wind, I mean, that's moving us 12 mils of wind over. I was holding between 10 and 15 mils of wind on every shot. And that target, the steel target that's on its side, is 18 inches wide for reference. All
Okay.
right. That's a 2/3 IPSC. So they're 11 inches. I know it's on its side, but if it was upright, it would be 11 inches tall and about 18 inches
Why?
the other way. And, almost every shot stayed on that plate. And if you start doing the math on that, you know, the can itself in my reticle was 0.15 mils. Like, so it's not even a half of a minute of angle wide, right? So at 736 yards, one MOA is roughly 7.5 inches.
Uh-huh.
A Coke can, I guess they're about 2.5 inches wide or so. That's the same diameter as that paint can. So I'm shooting at something that's under a half minute of angle on wind. All right. And half an MOA is roughly 0.15 mils. All right.
Got it.
So if I sit there and just moving my wind a half a mile per hour difference, all right, there's 10.2. I drop down a half a mile per hour on my wind call, and it moves me. We just went from 9.8, go up half mile an hour. There's 10.2. That's a half a mil of windage right there on a half mile an hour.
Now are you
So
shaking?
if you do the math on that target, the paint can out there was only, it's like a third of a mile per hour wide. So I have to make a correct wind call.
Oh, I see what you got you
I
now.
have to
Now
call
I
the
get
wind
it.
within a third of a mile per hour, more like a quarter mile per hour to actually intercept that target.
Got it.
So, the amount of hate that came from that video was comical. Dude, I love haters, man. I absolutely love it. They were talking so much crap. Oh, anyone can do that. And like, why is that the only video on the entire internet?
Yeah, of anyone doing it.
Anyone ever doing it? Then, if
Yeah.
anyone can go do it, show up.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've put 10 grand on the line for someone to back up their claims. No one ever takes it up. But anyway, yeah. So we're
And that's with
go ahead and
the best equipment that there is,
correct.
and the equipment doesn't even do the real work, the
no, it
equipment.
doesn't. It's there because I can give this rifle to any good shooter. They don't know how to weaponize the math, and they don't know how to do the amount of calculations that go on in my brain from shot to shot. It's like one of my buddies, he calls me Neo because all I see are ones and zeros streaming
Yeah,
down,
yeah.
because like anytime there's a gun around and you see me with like a far staring look in my eyes, I am doing endless math. Like, you probably have to like poke me to break me out of my trance because I'm always calculating stuff, but especially on wind. But so as I'm sitting there shooting, you go and hit play again on that. As I'm shooting, you know, shots in the air, right there. So that one that hit the plate and it deflects the shrapnel straight down. That probably was hitting 2 inches to the right of the paint can there. All right, same thing. That's hitting the plate and just off to the right of the paint can. So as I'm seeing this, I am adding like a tenth and a half of wind, because trying to time that gust,
And the gust's different every time, isn't it? Like
it's different every time. So where I'm at on the ground, on top of that, I'm actually in a weird spot. The way the road, when you come and shoot me, Sidney, you'll understand because there's a hill to my left side there, and the wind will actually sweep over the top of where I'm laying, and I can't really feel it, the pickup and let off. So I'm 100% reliant on the mirage and reading the wavelength on the mirage. So the more choppy the mirage is, that means the wind angle is more at your back or in your face.
Yeah, it seems like
The
every shot.
longer
Yeah,
the longer your mirage lambdas are, that means the wind is more full value. So I'm having to pay attention to all that stuff, and then the wind let off like 2 miles per hour that I couldn't physically feel.
yeah,
And then we sent a few off the left side of the plate right there.
yeah.
I mean, that one right there hit within a quarter inch. There was so many shots immediately on either side of that on the plate that we just didn't quite hit. That one right there hit less than a half inch.
How slow is
And
that bullet going when it hits that target? Right,
505 feet per second.
so you can almost catch it. There it is.
Yeah. So it's got 505 feet a second. It only has 22 foot-pounds of energy.
Jesus, that's
It
crazy.
didn't have enough energy to bust the can out there at 736. It just dented it and knocked it over.
Yeah, and if you shoot it with your 338, it explodes.
You shoot that thing at 4 miles with a 338 and it'll pop.
Yeah, and just so everyone knows, that's how far I thought I shot that deer this year almost.
That's
Uh,
funny. That's the exact distance
Yeah,
that you had. I think
yeah.
you said like 734 or something
I
like
mean,
that.
I walked back up to the stand after, and when I used my rangefinder, obviously not as quality of rangefinder as the one Chase uses, I was shooting the tree line behind it. And thank God I didn't really know what I was doing, because if I ranged wrong and knew what I was doing, I would actually have to hold about 4.5 feet high. Correct?
Correct.
Yep. So I learned a lot from that trip. It was unbelievable. And I got to tell you, it's hard to get out on that ranch with Chase. But if you guys are interested, hit me up and we'll see what we can do. But there's going to be some interesting stuff that comes down the pipe here. I'm going to be doing a course with Chase, with another buddy here towards the end of the year. We're going to do some handgun and some long range shooting. So those people that are interested in coming and taking that course with Chase and Colton towards the end of this year, where we'll be taking in. We'll be taking in applications. We're not going to take anyone that wants to go, but we're going to take 5 to 7 people that really are interested and want the opportunity to really, really learn what to do with these types of firearms. Chase, so if someone does want one of the it's Kydex, correct? Or Cadex?
Cadex.
Cadex. If someone does want one of these weapons, how do they go about getting one? And how do they go about getting the right one?
I'm actually a dealer myself, so they can either reach out to me personally, and I think your buddy Manny down in
Palm Beach, yes.
In Palm Beach Tactical is going to become a dealer for them also. So if anyone's wanting to like put hands on one and see one, I'm right between Houston and Austin and Texas, and I can let someone come coon finger one of my guns if they're genuinely interested in getting one, because KDXs are not cheap. There's a reason I use them, because they're that high quality right out of the gate, and they're like, if you were to get like a 300 Norma, say I want to be able to shoot 2 miles, but I want to be able to use factory ammo. I always steer people with the 300 Norma, and man, that is one of the most forgiving, easy cartridges to shoot. You're going to be looking at about $9,000, roughly.
That's not including a reticle.
That's not a scope. That is just the naked rifle. It comes with a very nice drag bag. I would say for like, I always tell people that really want to get into the sport, build your main rifle that you want, and then build a clone of it in a 223 and go train in wind on your 223, and that way you don't kill off your good barrel and wasting components and valuable ammo
So
on your big rifle.
it, in a short period of time, explain to us um, the reasoning and what happens with a barrel over a period of time with shooting a weapon. Because I grew up shooting a 243, then went to a 7 millimeter, and I shot hundreds and hundreds of rounds through both weapons. Never changed up my barrel. And about 7 years into shooting my 7mm, I couldn't hit anything, and no one ever even told me the
Kills your
reason
barrel.
why.
Yeah.
So talk to us about the importance of not wasting that higher. I wouldn't say better gun, but your
Well, yeah,
go-to
you
deer
are.
rifle.
Yeah. Um, barrel life is
A real thing.
very alien to most people. They don't really know what's going on in a barrel to begin with. Um, barrels have one of the shortest duty lives of any piece of equipment I have ever looked into. So if you count the amount of dwell time, dwell time is the time from the time you pull the trigger to the time that the projectile exits your barrel. You get about, depending on the caliber, you get between 6 and 8 seconds worth of barrel usage if you total up all your rounds down your barrel. So that's not a long time. That's a
No,
lot.
what's that, about 3,000 rounds?
No, that's like 1,500 rounds.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So the companies
It
out there
depends
that
on
are
your caliber. Like the more bottlenecked your cartridge is, the more high performing it is. That comes with a price. It's a shorter barrel life. All right. My 338 enabler, you get about 750, maybe 800 good rounds out of it
what?
before it starts to slow down. Oh, well, that's performance at a price, man. It's no different than a drag motor.
Got
You
it.
put that much pressure and violence
It's a
at once. Those top fuel dragsters are making 12,000 horsepower. That's not a 4-cylinder Honda Civic.
got it.
You know,
Got it.
your 22 is your 4-cylinder Honda Civic, which you're pretty much never going to kill.
Yeah.
Minimal maintenance, it's going to last forever. And your top fuel dragster has to be rebuilt every pass, right? My 338 enabler, I have to strip the copper out of that barrel every 75 rounds, or it will create so much back pressure it'll start blowing primers.
Oof.
And then I get velocity migration. So now because I'm creating more pressure with every shot, essentially, my velocity starts peaking up faster and faster. Now my algorithm doesn't match.
Got
So
it.
I have to maintenance that barrel very, very, very specifically at a very, very specific cadence. And that way I can maximize my accurate barrel life. Now, like I said, 7 millimeter, 1,500 rounds, that's about all you're going to get. And what happens is your heat friction in your barrel, it will start to crack. It's called fire cracking. The first couple of inches of your barrel, it'll look like a dry lake bed drying up, and that mud starts to peel and crack
Yep.
like an alligator's back. That's what the metal does on the inside of a barrel. And if you have a softer piece of steel, or even an over hardened piece of steel, that didn't get heat treated correctly, it can become harder and more brittle. There's kind of a sweet spot in there on your brittle hardness that you want in your steel to make a barrel last as long as possible. But you have to clean your barrel and get the carbon out regularly. You don't ever want to let it set in there either. So when you have carbon in your barrel that has layered up on top of copper, that, depending on what type of material your barrel's made out of, you'll actually start to pit the copper.
Copper. Yep. Seen that before. Yep.
And then when you clean your barrel out, now you've got a giant divot, which that barrel is pretty much ruined
Done.
at that point.
Done.
So that's why it's so important to maintenance your guns, keep them oiled in storage. And in fact, here's a little just pro tip. When I put a barrel up for long storage, I buy bore snakes, and this is the only thing I use a bore snake for. But I completely saturate those things with oil and pull them in the barrel, tie them off, because I swap barrels on my guns all the time. I can swap barrels on this gun behind me here in 4 minutes. I will keep a saturated bore snake in there with oil, and then I tie the ends to itself, and just that's how I keep them stored. That way I will never have to worry, like, oh, it's time to get the 338 barrel back on. Pop it off, unscrew the string, pull it out, run 2 dry patches down there, and
You're good to go.
well, I do something else before I shoot, but that's something you got to pay to learn. It's a
Okay.
class. We were talking about, the importance of, barrel maintenance, what's happening in a barrel as it depreciates over its life cycle, and some of the things that you can do to increase that barrel life is, like I said earlier, I'm a real big believer in building training guns. So I build a lot of clone 223s for people. That way we can take a much cheaper round and still go push. We shoot our 223s over 2,000 yards routinely. And if you know how to tune your gun and do a lot of specialized math, that those shots are possible. And we've got a clip that we'll be releasing with the G2 Precision pretty soon, where I took their 18-inch gas gun. It's a highly, highly, highly accurate gas gun that they make, and I shoot this thing at 2,500 yards. And it's not like we had to shoot a whole bunch; like it happened in like 5 shots. And then when, of course, we didn't have the cameras rolling, we actually pushed a 223 to over 2 miles, and just to kind of like we were like, well, I'm already shooting 1,100 yards past where I go transonic, so the bullet's still stable. Let's just see how far we can run it. And I threw the elevation on for 2 miles. Second shot, flasher goes off on the target. Where we're just like, are you freaking kidding me? Of course we didn't have the cameras rolling.
Yeah.
But
you have to do it again.
Anyway, yeah. So the reason we do 223s is the more straight walled a cartridge is, the longer barrel life you're going to have. So we're shooting a much smaller bullet. We don't shoot them fast either. I slow them down on purpose. I only shoot mine at like 2,700 feet a second with 80 grain bullets. That way it forces you to make a better wind call, because it still gets slapped around in the wind quite a bit compared to our other centerfire cartridges. But man, getting a 223 set up exactly how your precision rifle is built, that way your fundamentals are going to be exactly the same. You've got the same movement, same bolt lifts, everything. The only difference is your payload. All right. And you're much more efficient. So, if you're getting to where you can call the wind within about a mile per hour with a 223, well, bump up to your 6.5 PRC. Well, now that same target went from 1 mile an hour wide to like 4 or 5 miles per hour wide.
Yep.
Because it's so much more efficient. So now you can comfortably push your hunting distances back. I shot a Coos whitetail down in Mexico a couple of years ago, and he was like 875 yards, and the wind was over 30 miles per hour. But I showed the guide as soon as we got to camp, like he knew who I was, so I kind of had that going for me. But I still wanted to show him, like, I don't ever want my reputation to speak for me, so to speak, in a real situation. Like, as soon as I get to camp, I'm like, hey, there's a target, or I'm sorry, there's a rock over there. There's an intersection on this rock. It's over a mile away, and when you hit that on the first shot, that gives those guides,
The comfort. Yeah.
this guy's the real deal. Like,
Mhm.
So we didn't even hesitate in a 30 mile an hour full value left to right wind at 875 yards. And we were like over 10 degrees uphill. We're doing the math for all this stuff. And one shot, dead in bed. Got it on video, man. Great hunt. And that's why we push our comfort zones to where we just don't even have one anymore.
So
Like,
we're going to put this on here, but what is your YouTube channel so people can check your stuff out?
it's Pumps Precision Rifle Training, and I've got some decent videos on there, man. A lot of the really cool stuff I'm not even allowed to post just because it's not fully down the pipeline yet. Just a lot of testing stuff that I video.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of clients are lucky enough to, like, while we're doing a class, I actually have to go out and gather some data on a new product, so they'll get to see it. But
There's some pretty good stuff on there, guys. I take a peek at the YouTube page. I've been lost.
Yeah, there's some decent stuff on there, but the vast majority of the really cool stuff is not on there. So, but if you happen to take a class, a lot of the times I'll have that stuff in person, and you're basically on an NDA when you sign the waiver at my school, anyways, just for that purpose.
So talk to us. We're gonna chat about 2 more things. The first one is talk to us about the courses that you teach. Give a high level explanation of a beginner all the way up to intermediate in a few minutes for us, and then one more quick topic there. And
Sure.
We'll
All
go
right.
from there.
All right. My introduction class, everybody is going to be shooting out to, depending on what caliber and quality of firearm you have. Like normally, we're going to at least 1,200 yards in my introduction course. That will make sense when you come there. A lot of introduction courses only go to 500 yards. That's complete ripoff, if you ask me. You know, a lot of people don't want to shoot further than 500 yards. But if you want your ballistic solver to be as accurate as possible, those who know why that 1,200 yard line is pretty important. Intermediate courses, we go into deep dives on shooting from tripods, various positions, a little more advanced look at wind reading. That's the really big frontier right there is wind reading. We teach advanced reloading. We teach 22 tuner courses. We teach introduction to extreme long range, and then I bet I've had 30 of the guys that compete against me at King of 2 Miles come and train with me for my advanced extreme long range.
Well, that gives you a little edge. You know what they got in them.
Yeah.
So what's pretty cool is, I was hunting in Florida with a Marine sniper about 7 years ago, and the gentleman grabbed he had a Daniel AR-15, and he shot a doe at freehand, shot a doe at about 580 yards, and I was like blown away. And then you watch Chase shoot 1,000 yards freehand. Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Figured that one might come up. Um, yeah. So a couple of years ago, um, uh, anyone that knows a little bit about long range shooting, there's a company called Applied Ballistics. They are the #1 ballistic solving platform, bar none. And that's what's in our watches and our kestrels. Um, I was on their development group. I shot for the extreme long range team, and then I ran their training division until COVID shut it down. And we were testing a new military cartridge, which is now released. It's called the 375 Enabler. And that was the third prototype ever built. And I have the access to shoot a whole bunch out in the field and hunt also. And they asked me to kill a deer to kind of see what it would do to it at distance. And this gun, when I tell you, it was shooting knots. Like it shot so stupidly accurate and precise. The landowner said, if you can make a headshot on my IPSC target at 1,000 yards, you can go kill a deer out in my field. No charge. I was like, cool. I lay down. I mean, absolutely. I couldn't have drawn a more perfect right between the eyes shot if I tried to. And he just kind of was like, I called his bluff.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, go ahead.
He's like, shit, that just
Yeah,
cost me 5 grand.
yeah. So I go out and I kind of regret. Well, I don't regret it. I was supposed to shoot the deer in the shoulder to see what the bullet did, but I was so confident. I just shot that IPSC between the eyes. I was like, I'm gonna split this deer's wig. Doe walks out. I had two different rangefinders with me, Sidney, and the reason is I had just gotten my really good rangefinder.
Uh-huh.
Um, the Northrop Grumman one.
Yep.
That thing will do 20 kilometers, so 20,000 meters instantaneously. Like it doesn't hesitate. And then I had my other one, and I didn't really trust beam divergence on it. And I was ranging it with my smaller rangefinder at first, and I was getting anywhere from like 980 to 1,040. And finally, like I got 1,005 yards a couple of times in a row. And then she walked in a few steps. And then I ranged her again, and I couldn't really tell. Yeah, I was getting mixed numbers again. So I get my big one out, zapped her, zapped her, zapped her, three in a row, 1,002 yards. And I was like, all right, when you make a headshot on an animal, you never want to do it when their head is sideways, ever. Because if their head is like this and I missed my wind call by that much, I can shoot her in the sinus cavity. They don't die. It's bad. Like I've seen that happen in deer camp where dudes try to make a sideways headshot and they made a bad shot or the wind got them or whatever, and it just blows their nose off. It's awful. So I only approve of headshots if they're directly on. That way, if I miss my elevation and I hit her low, I'm still hitting her in the neck. and
Got
the
it.
caliber that I'm shooting is like a freight train. It's 8,000 foot-pounds of muzzle energy at the muzzle.
Oof.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It has more energy at 1,000 yards than a 300 Win Mag does if I was just put against you and shoot.
Wow.
So, yeah. So if I miss a little bit, she's still getting all the energy.
Yep. Got
It's
it.
a 407 grain bullet that was going like 2,860 feet a second. And send the shot, and I mean, I caught her literally right between the eyes and just canoed her.
And
You
this
know,
is a freehand shot, just so you guys know. There's no rest. He's
no. This was a prone shot.
oh,
Now
this
I
was a
have
pro.
this was a prone shot. I have another shot.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
I think it was against Steele, right?
yeah. The steel shot was at 2,400 yards offhanded.
Okay, sorry,
First
sir.
first round, 2,400 yards offhanded, same rifle.
Yeah, it's so, guys. Again, I can't tell you how much it means to have Chase here. To be able to have him as a resource for my audience and for myself. So if anyone is interested, I'll be going out and doing a course with him. You guys can piggyback on with me. I'm gonna take about 4 or 5 people with me here, probably in the early fall, and do some archery hunting as well. But the last thing I want to bring up, Chase, is for those of you out there, we're gonna try to air this the day before our event next week. I'm gonna cut the line. I have 4 podcasts in front of this one. The only one that's going to go before yours is Michael Johnson, because he just won last weekend, and he put on quite the clinic. And MJ will be at the event, guys, this year doing a kickboxing course, some wrestling, and hanging out and having a good time. He comes every single year. We got some other fighters coming this year as well, along with some celebrities that have been there in the past, as well as Chase. So, we're going to be doing a demo shooting. Only 100 yards this year, but Chase will be out there more or less. I volunteered him to kind of walk around, talk to people about their form and stuff. He doesn't even know that yet, but he's always down to help, and I'm really excited to have him there at the event this year. And I just really wanted to say thanks, Chase, for taking the time out of your day. I know you're fucking busy as can be. Our next podcast together will be with you and your brother talking about the best meat in the country. We'll be doing that here in the next couple of months. And I'll have both these guys on. But man, thank you so much, dude. And
thank you, Sidney. Seriously, and Core Medical, they brought me in like family. I feel like family with y'all already. I'm spreading the word as fast as I can already. I've already had over 10 people sign up.
That's true.
Because like this stuff matters to me a lot. I used to compete in bodybuilding, and I used to be a personal trainer, and people don't really appreciate when you start getting around that 40-year-old age, to stay on top of your hormones and improve and extend your quality of life. You can still feel like you're in your early 30s for another decade or 2.
Yep.
And man, like I was right at that point to where like I got my blood work done, my test levels were under 200, and I was just tired all the time. And dude, it's been a week and a half. I feel like a different human. I've already lost 20 pounds.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's funny. Chase stared at my 300 Win Norman, almost punched me in the head because I didn't dial my zero back on my scope, and I looked at him and I was like, "Well, you need some estrogen blockers, sir." So
there's no joke, man. That is no joke. I needed a Remodex bag.
Yeah. But dude, you look amazing. I haven't even seen you since we hunted together, and you look like super lean. You look amazing.
I've already leaned out. I'm one of those lucky assholes that just keeps abs year round, no matter what I eat. But they're sharpening up even better. And man, in 3 months, I will be a walking billboard again, dude. Like I'm so blessed to be part of your team, Sidney. And it like just meeting Jason and the guys, like I know, and talking with Travis, man, that guy's amazing.
Yeah, wait till you meet him. He's a stud, dude.
I can't wait, dude. Like it matters so much to your team.
Yeah.
To help people. Like
that
matters to them. And you sense that immediately. And that gravitates me to people like that, because I'm that same way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always the person in my life that I need in my life.
Yeah, gotcha.
But I mean, like, you kind of have to be your own hero. Like, I can tell everybody on your team is the same way.
I appreciate that, dude. That means the world. You know, we do breed that pedigree, and it's a self-cleansing atmosphere, I like to say, because if you don't act that way, you just get removed from the building very quickly.
Exactly,
So,
man.
and
Like,
and it has to be
you can't
genuine too.
bullshit that. You're either that way, like legit, or you're not. You
Yep.
can't fake that. And you get that sense immediately, like your guys are real. And that makes me want to just like anything Core Medical needs me for, dude, I'm there.
I appreciate
Y'all are
that, brother.
family.
Well, we'll see you in about 10 days, brother. And I'm very excited to have you at this event. I mean, it's going to be big for everyone there. And guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for all your loyalty. Chase, once again, have a great day, guys. And we will see you soon back on the Core Medical Podcast.